All right, everyone. The other day, Dementiahitler was trending. That was courtesy, I believe, of Scott Adams originally. That's a new moniker for Joe Biden. I still prefer Dork Brandon, or just Brandon. You know, let's go Brandon, fuck Joe Biden. But they're all good. There's plenty of other monikers for him, too. You know, dude who shits himself. Dude who is not aware of what is going on at any given moment. The stumbler, the stutterer. You know, the stutterer would be fun because the Legacymedia still pretends he doesn't have any cognitive issues other than a stutter. Apparently a stutter causes you to incoherently wander around on stage and then ask where you are. I was not aware that this was a particular facet of stuttering disorders, but in Joe Biden's case, that's literally what they claim. It's going to be real funny if there's actually any general election debates. We'll see if that pans out. They'll probably try not to have them. They'll probably try to make up some excuse, and of course Donald Trump could be under house arrest at the time. That would rather make things difficult for logistic purposes, unless Joe is going to do it at the Mar-a-Lago, which would be hilarious. You know, he has to stay overnight at the Mar-a-Lago to eat his prune smoothie. But the Legacymedia is incessantly trying to sell propaganda on his behalf. And effectively, an element of it is fascistic. Of course, fascism, with the conjoining of government and corporate power into sort of a so-called state capitalist system, usually very authoritarian, very top-down, hierarchical, is kind of what we operate under when you really think about it, under the terms of neoliberal globalism. We're effectively becoming more like China. China is no longer puristically communistic. It's centralized more in a fascist sense than a communistic sense. The people of China, by the way, by and large, not aware of this fact, and the East Blockers certainly deny it. Yes, we're becoming more like that. The wave of populism that you've seen lately is an attempt to remove ourselves from that entrapment. But the Legacymedia is explicitly selling propaganda as though the opposite were true. So that the idea of marginally lower taxes, defending one's national borders and interests, primarily the government representing the interior population, is seen actually, is labeled fascism or authoritarianism. I would say that the Biden administration is arguably the most authoritarian that we've ever dealt with. As far as that top-down haranguing, yeah, especially when you throw in the state propaganda. Trump never had that particular advantage. The Legacymedia never had anything kind to say about him. Even Fox News namby-pambied it most of the time. With Joe Biden, you have a state-run media, effectively. And they brag about it. And there are still people that'll say it's a conspiracy theory to suggest it, even if you can dig up the Oliver Darcy tweet last year explicitly proclaiming that the White House was giving marching orders to elements of the press on economic issues. And then when you push that issue, if you can prove that, and they'll say, well, it's just on economic messaging, so that has nothing to do with anything else. Bullshit. You expect me to believe that the White House would get a foot in the door and then not walk in the door? They just stuck their toe inside briefly? No, of course, they give messaging to the Legacymedia on everything else, too, and the Legacymedia loves it. And they get Captive Joe. They get to go to their pressers. Karine Jean-Pierre doesn't berate them. That's definitely an advantage if you're in the White House press corps. They get kickbacks. I'm sure there are kickbacks taxpayer-funded going on behind closed doors. And remember, the Biden crime syndicate has ties to people all around the world. The Legacymedia would love to interview some of those people, so maybe you can get an exclusive here and there. It's one hand washes the other. It's sort of like those high-paying art sales. It's totally not money laundering. It's totally charitable. A philanthropist writes off $20 million on an art piece by donating it to a museum or something like that. It's called Spit on a Fucking Canvas, You Asshole. And it's the name of my new masterpiece. Really artistic. They need to get a Leonardo da Vinci going or something. But effectively, it's an incessant sale of propaganda. It's a wall of propaganda approach. We've seen this for some time. In the Trump years, it was more, it's just dogpiling him. Now it's trying to uphold the administration despite the fact that there's nothing good about the administration. You do not have an intelligent leader. You do not have a well-spoken leader. You don't have a good economy, but the Legacymedia will tell you entirely different. Well, it's record job creation. Yeah, most of those are second jobs or something like that, but we created them. Yay, let's go, Brandon. Gas prices are coming down. Well, yeah, but they're still way up above where they were a few years ago, but again, the Legacymedia never tells anybody that. You've got a heavily authoritarian administration in which the legal system has been rigged up to try to persecute the opponent into jail right now. This is seen as a defense of democracy if you read the Legacymedia's pieces about it. Sometimes they'll give you a more skeptical approach, but it's still a kid gloves approach. So it'll be like, well, this is unhelpful. We want the voters to defeat Donald instead of the legal system, or something like that. While it is good for democracy that Donald Trump would be in jail for the rest of his life, we cannot brook this because we just think that the voters are too intelligent to re-elect him anyway, or something like that. And the coat pieces are almost worse than the outright propaganda fluff pieces. The coat pieces that pretend to be neutral and straddle that sort of middle line somehow are worse, more grotesque than the pieces that don't even pretend. Like it's just flat out propaganda. At the very least, it's more obvious, I suppose. People can be taken in pretty easily. Legacymedia is the worst of the worst. I think the only thing that goes beyond the Legacymedia, and it's sort of intertwined with it anyway, would be like tech censorship, because you've got a de facto attempt to destroy the First Amendment in the modern public square, which is effectively the realm of digital debate, vlogging and things like that. But they're intertwined anyway, because the Legacymedia and its so-called fact checkers and so forth are the ones that spur it on all the time. It's sort of like, yeah, the censorship is a wild horse, but who's whipping it into a frenzy? It's some other groups of people. But I still think that I dislike the Legacymedia worse. It's funny because oftentimes you have former journos, they come out and they're like, Legacymedia is full of shit. It's just basically a wild party of propaganda. And then those people get called propagandists or conspiracy theorists. Ari Tucker Carlson, Carrie fucking Lake, she worked with the Legacymedia for years. If I remember correctly, she was on broadcasts on a regular basis. She's worked with these people. She tells people flat out that they're lying to them. They just don't want to believe it. The lie is so large that they would rather believe it than try to debunk it, I think. And by the way, this is actually a propaganda tactic too, which is why they're employing it and why I call them propagandists. That's about all. Peace out.